Joining us right now is our legal analyst, our KTAR legal analyst, Barry Markson. And Barry, you were talking with the boys yesterday. I wanted to follow up a little bit on this. You were talking with Outspoken, with Bruce and Gatos, about the Kari Lake legal motion here, I guess. And again, correct me. The reason we asked you on is because I don't know the legalese on all of this stuff. So she basically told a court, Stephen Richard, the Maricopa County recorder, is suing me for defamation. I don't want to fight it anymore. Just tell me how much I owe him. Is that right? Is that basically how that shakes out?
Yeah, at its base, that's exactly right, Chris. It's there's a little more to it than that, because when a lawsuit is filed against you, it's a complaint. That's a lawsuit. It's called a complaint, and then the next step is you file what's called an answer. You answer each of the allegations in the complaint, and you can admit them, you can deny them, and say I don't have enough information. There's you can put the information in and say here's why this is wrong. Whatever there's different ways to do it, but you do that here. Kari Lake never filed that answer. And if you remember a week or two ago, Stephen Richard's lawyers came out and said, went to the court and asked for this default because they hadn't filed their answer. They didn't do what they were required to do under the law. Kari Lake never filed an answer. Even then, she had a 10-day period to do that, and she still didn't do it. So when you default like this, you are admitting the reasonable allegations in that complaint. So you're not, if one of the allegations is, Kari Lake causes it to rain more often than it did before, something that's completely ridiculous and not reasonable.
Yeah.
She doesn't admit that. But anything else in the complaint that has a basis, and Richard's complaint was very strong with a lot of support for it, she's admitted that now. So when he's alleging that she's making false statements, that she's lying about him and defaming him, Kari Lake's admitted it, that she did it.
Okay.
And that's where we are now. So, but you're right. The next step now is to figure out how much are Stephen Richards' damages, how much money does he get from Kari Lake and her campaign?
All right. So I wanted to follow up on that, but let's take this out of the realm of politics, because I think we tend to get really wound up over who's on whose team. Okay. And so explain this to me. What was the old lady? Explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Isn't that what Columbo used to say?
Dumb it down for us, Barry.
So suppose that Joe defames producer Pablo and says, hey, Pablo is a Dodgers fan. So that would be an accusation that is obviously slanderous. It's untrue, and it would damage Pablo's reputation, right? So what are his options then? He could file a complaint, that's the civil lawsuit, right?
Yeah, I mean, so if somebody, first of all, it's important to know that a defamation or slander it's something where you're saying something that's factually untrue. So, I can say, Pablo is annoying. Okay,
right.
That's my opinion. He can't sue me for that because it's arguable whether or not he's annoying.
Okay.
Of course, Pablo is not annoying. But if I say Pablo stole something, or Pablo
is a Dodgers fan,
or is a Dodgers fan, then that, if it's a factual statement that is false, then you can be sued. So the first thing normally that'll happen is you write a letter or you have your lawyer write a letter to the other side and say, hey, you made a factually incorrect statement, correct it.
Yeah.
Make this right. This is untrue. Here's why it's untrue. And Richard did that here. His lawyer sent those letters, and Kari Lake ignored it and didn't do anything. In fact, she went out and spoke more about it. So the next step is you file this lawsuit, and I'll tell you, I've defended a lot of defamation cases in my career.
Oh.
And this is an area I have a good amount of experience in. They're difficult cases to prove. I mean, it's not an easy thing to prove. Number one, to prove that somebody defamed you, and then number two, to prove what your damages are for that. Here, because Kari Lake surrendered, because she gave up, she's given that part to Stephen Richards. The hard part's done. So now it's just I'm really it's just the damages. And I'll tell you some guys. I've been practicing law here for 30 years, including all these defamation cases. I've never seen anybody do this before. I've never seen a defendant in a defamation case, lawyers in a defamation case. I've never seen them do this before. You've
never seen somebody do what Lake did?
Correct. I've never seen somebody default and ask the court to expedite the default and get straight to damages. Never.
Wow.
Why do you think she's doing that?
I think it's again, this is my thinking here, but I think it's a couple of reasons. One is she's come out and said she says things like, Richard's trying to bleed her dry. She's saying she doesn't have the money to pay her lawyers. And, keep in mind, this is personal. This isn't although she's suing the campaign as a defendant also, she's got to come up with the money to pay lawyers and to do that, and that can get expensive. So I think that's part of it. She just doesn't want to pay those lawyers. I think she knows she was going to lose. She was in a really bad position. She made statements that the trial court previously said were provably false. She made statements where she accused Stephen Richer of inserting 300,000 ballots into the election and printing on election day, printing ballots on paper where it didn't fit. Stephen Richer has nothing to do with what happens on election day. Nothing.
Yeah.
So she's making allegations. She's accusing him of corruption and doing things that are illegal in a place and on a day that he was not involved. It's just factually incorrect. So I think she knew she was going to lose. And why spend all that money doing, to lose anyway? The other reason I think, and this is more political, I think she wants to try to get this over with and still win this election. She doesn't want news of the emails and texts and recordings and things that would have been turned over to just be day after day after day over the next, 7 or 8 months coming out leading up to Election Day. So I think it was a strategy decision as well.
Talking with our KTAR legal expert, Barry Markson, and about the case involving Stephen Richer and Kari Lake and defamation that Richer has alleged Kari Lake defamed him. Barry, is there a multiplying effect in terms of the number of times that Kari Lake might have made an accusation as well as what was said exactly? So it's not just, hey, 5 or 6 different things that were said, but the number of times that they were said that can lead up to the amount that will get paid out to him?
That all of that can play into the amount, and the bigger reason for that here is punitive damages. So one of the things that Kari Lake admitted to by defaulting here is a legal term that's called actual malice. And in a defamation case like this against a public figure, which Stephen Richer is, it's a higher standard. So if Joe, if you defame your next door neighbor who nobody knows, the standard is less
because they're a private person.
Yeah, because they're a private person. Exactly. It's easier for them to prove or to say the standard is lower for them to show that you defame them. For a public person, you have to you go into that with some understanding that people are going to say nasty things about you and that things are going to happen, and that's okay. So here, the standard for defamation by itself is higher, and you have to show actual malice. You have to show that Kari Lake did this knowing what she was saying was untrue, and she did it with malice. And now Stephen Richer has established that because Kari Lake surrendered, because she gave up. That's what this means. So once you get to that place of actual malice, now you can start to talk about what are called punitive damages. So it's more than just, Stephen Richer's damages are going to be things like he had to hire security to protect himself and his family because of the threats he was getting because of Kari Lake. It's reputational damage. But now you get to ask for punitive damages, which are not only, Richer will get the money, but they're designed to punish Kari Lake. So now you get to look at, well, how many times did Kari Lake say it? Did Stephen Richer tell her numerous times, this is false? Did Kari Lake know it was false? Well, she did because courts were telling her it was false. And then she still did it. And this is where I think Kari made a mistake. I think she's hoping that she wasn't going to have to sit through discovery now. She wasn't going to be deposed. She wasn't going to have to turn over her texts and emails and recordings. I think she's going to have to, because it's going to go to, Joe, as you're asking, how was she? Are there texts and emails with her staff where she's telling them to keep going after Richer even though she knows it's false? I'd like to know that. Are there conversations that she's recorded with Stephen Richer or with other Republicans where she's talking about how she's going after him to raise money or to do? I don't know what's there. I'm obviously guessing, but those things will go toward the amount of damages.
So, Barry, let's go with our analogy here instead of getting into the politics, because again, I want to lower the temperature in the room, but still be analogous with it. Suppose that Joe called Pablo a Dodgers fan, and Pablo takes exception to that. It's provably false. And we're able to say that Joe did that with actual malice, right? Which I think is one of the thresholds for defamation. So, which means that he meant to hurt Pablo by calling him a Dodgers fan. All right. So if that's the case, and Pablo says, that's it, I'm suing you. Joe could at some point say, why don't we settle this, right? But why not? What's the difference between a settlement and then not fighting it in court and then accepting the judgment? It seems like a settlement would have been the smart way to go.
Well, a settlement would have been the smart way to go. There's a lot of difference there. So number one, it's a settlement discussion. You're not leaving it up to a jury to decide what the damages are. You're kind of getting a lot of input into how this will resolve. Also, in a settlement, there's no admission of guilt. So you're not admitting liability. You're not admitting you did what you're being accused of. It's literally, hey, we're just settling it. Kari Lake could have settled it, assuming she could come up with enough money, and she probably would have had to admit that what she said was untrue, but she could have settled it and then made that argument that, look, I did this because I want to focus on my campaign, I want to do these things. She didn't do that. Here, she just admitted it. I mean, where we are right now is Stephen Richer has established that Kari Lake, in essence, lied, and she's admitted it, and she defamed him, and she did it with actual malice. So all of that could have been avoided with the settlement. Now, in fairness to Kari Lake, I don't know what Stephen Richer would have accepted in settlement. It almost assuredly, because Stephen has said this publicly, would have required an apology and an acknowledgement of that she made false statements, but she just did that anyway. So yeah. I honestly don't understand why she didn't approach him about a settlement. And as I said earlier, and he just confirmed it, there were conversations before the lawsuit was filed. There were conversations after the lawsuit was filed, and Kari Lake's people ignored him altogether.
Well, Barry, you say she did that here, but did she? I didn't see a mea culpa here or an I'm sorry. I see that she's conceding basically that, hey, I'm going to lose this. Tell me what I need to owe. But at what point in the process is it the point of no return? When can you say, I'm sorry, I'm going to fall on the sword? And at what point is a judge going to look at this and go, nope, too late. We're never going to let you off the hook?
Well, the time to say I'm sorry is to settle the case in what Chris was just saying. So,
which we're past that point. So what if she says, she says today, I'm sorry?
Well, the sorry doesn't do anything. She's admitted she did it. She's liable for making false statements and defaming Stephen Richer.
And it wouldn't affect the damages at all?
Well, it may in front of a trial if she were to get up on the stand and testify that she didn't realize. I mean, if she were to show contrition, I can't tell you whether a jury would how a jury would take that into account. I think that would be a serious thing if she explained it and said, I was in the heat of a campaign and I'm so sorry. I never meant to defame him. I thought what I was saying was true. She can try to explain that away. If she shows true contrition, the jury may take that into account. But that doesn't change the fact that she repeatedly made these false statements over and over and over again, even after being told they were false, told by the court, told by Richer. It's really unbelievable. And the thing that really gets me here, guys, and you know this, Kari Lake was a broadcaster here in the Valley for 30 years. And you know as well as I do that when you do that, your company is bringing in lawyers to talk to you about what defamation is and
every
how
year
to avoid it. And
go through training.
Of course.
Yep.
Of course. I'd be shocked if that wasn't happening at Channel 10. So she understood this, and she still did it. And, you want to look at something interesting. Donald Trump doesn't do this. I don't know if you ever noticed that. Trump doesn't get sued for libel because he knows how to skirt the line. And Kari Lake should know how to skirt the line, but she didn't do it. It's actually quite fascinating to me that she put herself in this position.
All she had to do, instead of saying that Richer inserted 300,000 ballots, she could have just said, many people are saying Stephen Richer put in 300,000 ballots.
Right.
That's all she had to do.
There's all sorts of ways she could have gotten the point across in a different way, but she didn't do that. And I'll never really understand why.
So, Barry, walk me through some of the technicals on this then, on the backside of this. So, obviously, there's going to be a judgment against her. We don't know how much it's going to be. We don't know how punitive it might be. How does she pay that? Does that have to come out of her purse? Can she start a GoFundMe? Can she have a PAC or a party pay for this? I mean, we've seen this on the national level where the RNC is paying a lot of legal fees for the former president. Can Kari Lake do that with the Arizona Republican Party? I mean, what's the process for paying things, and can she get somebody else to foot the bill?
Yeah, that's a different area of law, and there's certainly a difference between paying someone's legal fees and something that you consider to be part of the campaign as opposed to paying a judgment against them after they're found liable for it. So I'm not sure, and also the Arizona Republican Party has no money, so I'm not really sure feasibly how that would work anyway. I think Kari Lake is going to be on the hook for this. I mean, she said this. They're trying to bankrupt her. They're trying to bleed her dry. I think she has personal exposure to her financial assets and her family's finances from this. And, important to remember, you remember the Rudy Giuliani defamation case in Georgia?
Yeah.
We just saw that judgment recently. $148 million. There were two claimants in that case. I don't expect Kari's going to get that here, but Stephen Richer has the same lawyers that the plaintiffs against Rudy Giuliani had. It's the same team, and these folks know what they're doing. They know how to present the evidence. They'll bring in experts who will quantify Stephen Richer's damages, what this has done to his reputation, how much it would cost to fix that. We just saw the defamation case. I guess I shouldn't say Trump doesn't get this. He was just found liable by the E. Jean Carroll case, so I was wrong about that.
Yeah.
But we just saw that where they brought in expert witnesses to testify how much it would cost E. Jean Carroll to get her reputation back. And they can do it. So is Kari Lake going to hire somebody to oppose that? I don't know. But this is we're talking potentially millions of dollars, if not tens of millions of dollars.
Wow.
And if you're asking who pays it, it's Kari Lake, and she can try to declare bankruptcy. And there's all sorts of issues in bankruptcy. If this judgment is punitive damages, you can't discharge that in bankruptcy. So she's really put herself and her family in a very difficult financial position.
It's so many mistakes along the way. Barry Markson, our KTAR legal analyst. Barry, thanks for the breakdown here. Appreciate you explaining that to us.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thanks for watching The Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe, and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.